Welcome back to the Yankee and the Brit, everybody. This is our Thursday pregame show coming to you on Wednesday because, like we always say, we do stuff ass backwards around here.
Yeah, it just seems to work better. So we go from there. Look, we've got viewers already. Hello, viewer. Feel free to like, subscribe, and pop a comment and say hello and give us some shit for whatever takes we're going to come up with for the next hour or so.
Yes, and one of the big things we're going to discuss is Kadarius Toney and the refs. And no matter what anybody thinks of the play, that ruined one of the greatest plays in NFL history.
Should we just get the ref talk just generally out of the way early? Yes. So looking at it again, under the time, I think Toney is offside. I think the problem is a vagueness of the rules, and I think the problem is they're not calling it every single time. So I
don't know. Every time I look at this, and you can disagree, but I swear his foot's lined up on the ball, and everybody's got to remember that the center rocks the ball back once he puts his hand on it. So I swear the tip of that football is at the tip of Toney's toes. And my argument in this picture is Von Miller's head's farther over the line than the toe.
I think where I'm on it now is that the Chiefs haven't come out and defended the fact that Toney was onside. Everybody seems to think in the Chiefs organization, they seem to claim he's offside. That's a different camera angle though, isn't it? But the problem is if you're not calling it all the way through the game, then it's not a foul. Like if you're not calling it all the way through, then it shouldn't be a foul. Let the guys fucking play.
But this is just to be funny, but look at the difference in a different game.
Oh, yeah, that's offside.
I'm just saying, I did that one to be funny because of the Cowboys and Eagles.
But that shit is offside.
Right. But I do have a video from Dan Orlovsky that I wanted to play that I thought broke down the whole idea of what was going on quick. So here, everybody, is a quick 1:30 video from Dan Orlovsky.
But that play that we're talking about was not the first time it happened in the game. This is the second play of the game, his first snap. Kadarius Toney's up top. He is on the line. Now, the guy opposite him is supposed to be on the line as well, but he's about 3 or 4 inches behind Kadarius Toney. That's almost the same alignment that we're talking about when it comes to the flag getting thrown. But there's no warning that gets shared with Kadarius Toney on this play. This is his first snap of the game. Okay, a little bit later, look at where the football is. The football is on the 30-yard line. Look at where Kadarius Toney is. He's in that same exact alignment. Now look at the receiver opposite him. That guy is supposed to be on the line of scrimmage as well, but he's actually in the right alignment. So Kadarius Toney is basically in the same alignment that he was when that flag got thrown. A little bit later in the game, Kadarius Toney, look where the football is. Look at where his foot is. That looks exactly like the play that happens with the lateral. The guy opposite him, he's technically on the line as well. Kadarius Toney is in that same alignment consistently throughout that football game. Never once does he check with the official, but never once in that same alignment did the official ever warn him, hey, you have to get back. So is he offsides on that final play? Yeah, he probably is. But he was 3, 4, 5 other times in that game. So it's incumbent upon the officials in that situation to make sure he gets warned because that final play happened multiple times within that football game.
And he's probably is. So we're throwing a flag at the end of the game when the game's on the line on a fucking probably.
I mean, I still think looking at that, I think but the laws are very vague on this as well. Because I was just about to say, I think looking at that by the letter of the law, I would say, yeah, he's probably offside. There are times in that video though where he is more offside than where he is now. But the law is also incredibly vague. It just calls it lining up in the neutral zone. Okay, is that breaking the plane of the ball? Does some part of some part of the ball is in front of him? Is that okay? What is that?
If the line of scrimmage is the 30 and his foot's not over the 30, how is that's kind of my thing too. Is how is that a fucking offsides? And I think the problem is the refs got it completely wrong because this happens. So you swallow your whistle the whole game, but at the end of the fucking game. So and this is just the refs. This isn't so much about that game, but if you go back to the Titans-Dolphins game, they call that abrupt movement for a false instead of a false start. And it's like lines move sideways all the time. Defensive players can move. That's like, you can't make that call at the end of the game when the game is on the line. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think this is adding on to a lot of frustration that we've had with the refereeing this season, where at points we've kind of said, look, we don't mind if you make bad calls. Like, we don't mind if you make calls that we don't agree with necessarily in a game, but make them fair. Like, all the way, call the same all the way through the game. If you call a foul one way at the start of the game, you can't then swallow your whistle later on in the same way of, or because it's a game-winning play, I'm then gonna blow my whistle because somebody's gonna obviously notice that Tony's offside. Kadarius Toney needs to be told that he needs to be warned that he's getting close to the offside line. Andy Reid did say that in his press conference as well, saying, like, I normally get a warning when that's coming on. Kadarius Toney should be checking with the referees, and I think it also adds with the frustration that Chiefs fans and the NFL have with Kadarius Toney as well, and he's made quite a few boneheaded plays so far this year. So I think there's a lot of frustration going into this as well, which is really exacerbating the whole problem. Plus, it ruins one of the greatest plays of all time.
And I think one of the big problems is if it's close at the end of the game, don't call it. Like, if it's close, like if you're not 100% positive that something, don't screw up the end of the game by making a bad call, right? And then Patrick Mahomes is getting beat the fuck up for this, but he lost his mind at the end of the game. But you got to remember, this is 2 games in a row that the refs had a hand in, and the Chiefs feel like they got fucked in both games, which I would argue they did. But the MVS play is still on their mind because he was pretty much giving the defender a piggyback ride before the ball got there. You know what I mean? So, like, they're very upset about the way this is going for them. And I know I see people on the internet, the refs always help out the Chiefs. It's about time. Like, first, I don't buy that they're legitimately trying to help them out. And second, one has nothing to do with the other if the refs are doing something. This is, again, just goes back to this systemic problem that we have with referees, and that something needs to be done because nobody wants to be talking about referees when it comes to a game like that.
Yeah, and I think the referees should do their best to make sure that they're out of the way at the end of a football game. So they should be doing everything that they can to tell Kadarius Toney he's offside if they know they're going to throw that flag. Because surely he knows he's going to throw that flag as soon as the play starts, right? Like, surely he must see Kadarius Toney's offside and go like, right, as soon as this play starts, if he's still there, I'm going to throw this flag, right? Surely he must know, which means if you don't want to screw up the end of the game, at least make the effort to, like, they've got contact all over the field. They've all got earpieces in. Say to somebody who's close to Andy Reid, your player's offside. I'm going to call this if you don't stop it and stuff like that, which you're not really meant to do, but get out of the way at the end of the game. I think more training for the referees, more solid rules would be very helpful. And the relegation and promotion system for referees, I think is something that needs to be brought in immediately, and I think they need to be made professional.
And what makes it 20 times worse is that people are already pissed off saying that the league is rigged, and all of a sudden this happens on a game that if the Bills lose, they're pretty much out of the playoffs.
And everybody is watching this game as well because it's in a 9 for us. It's a 9 o'clock window. For you guys, it's 4 o'clock, right?
3, but for me, but for East Coast,
anyway, that window that they call the 4 o'clock window, then the 49ers had already won their game. They'd already won, so everybody's eyes were on this game. The Chiefs Bills had gone on longer than the other games as well, so everybody was watching this game, and it's on basically primetime TV. This call. The other point in this is I felt Patrick Mahomes looked a bit weak when he did it at first until I realized that 3 out of the last 4 games have been decided by wide receiver dropping the ball against the Eagles, and then they beat the Raiders. Wide receiver dropping the ball on the last play of the game against the Eagles, penalty decision against the Packers, penalty decision against the Bills. Like, that's got to be frustrating him. And even if he didn't know that Tony was offside or anything, like, he's going to at least be angry at Tony at first, but he doesn't want to take that out on his own teammate. He's going to have to let it out somewhere. And I hate seeing players shout at refs. I think it shows a really bad precedent. And if you want more referees to set up a relegation promotion system, then you need to make sure that they're respected and that people want the job. But I take back my feeling of thinking it made Patrick Mahomes look weak when I realized his frustration is nearly a month long now.
I've always found it weird, and you're not the only person to say it, but I've always found it weird when they're like, you need the refs to feel respected and you need to respect them. Why? I mean, because they're a fucking ref. To me, you're lucky to be part of the fucking game.
I think it makes... So in rugby and cricket, it's like the number one rule is respect the ref. Because in rugby and cricket, you can get sent off for disrespecting the refs. And
well, you can in the NFL.
You can get ejected, but that's not for... Like, in rugby, it's if I swear at the ref, then I could get sent off. In American football, it's like if you push them and stuff like that. In soccer, like, you have to... in soccer, they all scream and shout at the refs. So I think it goes against my sensibilities as the way I was brought up speaking to the refs, where we have to call them sir, we have to do all of that kind of stuff. So I think it goes against my sensibilities, but I think it's a job that I don't think many people want to do. So you respect the people who do the jobs that all of us don't want to do. And without the refs, we don't have a game. That's really important to remember.
They get paid a couple $100,000 a year, though. Yeah. So like I think there's enough people that would want to do it on the pro level, right? But the problem is that you got to get people who started and, came up through the ranks of the game. I just hate the idea. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So the way that you get those guys respected in the lower ranks of the game is by setting a good example in the top rank of the game, is where I was going to.
And then I was going to say, in any pro American sports, except for maybe baseball, you pretty much can say what you want to a ref within reason.
Yeah. I'm not personally keen on that, but yeah.
And I think this with Patrick Mahomes, I didn't have a problem with him going off because Patrick Mahomes has been in the league, like 6-7 years now. We already know Patrick's character. So,
I don't think it's an indictment on Pat at all. I think it's just frustration.
Stephen A does.
Well, Stephen A's a piece of shit, really, isn't he? Like, Stephen A's not a good journalist, so we'll leave Stephen A alone.
And that's just that thing, because he was one of the best NBA journalists out there before he became one of the debate show guys.
Yeah, just screamy, shouty.
But we already know how you guys feel about Germany or journalists on your side of the pond.
Yeah. Some of ours are all right. I like the BBC ones. It's just
I've watched Green Street Hooligans. I know how bad they don't journalists. Like,
football fans don't like journalists being around them. No, you're right. Should we analyze the actual football played in the game when the refs weren't getting in the way?
And just the last thing again. The reason it's so bad is because people feel like the fix is in to keep the Bills in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's also the amount of love that the Bills seem to get just in every facet of the NFL world. And I don't get it. And we'll talk more about the actual football and the love that the Bills shouldn't get for this game. I don't get it.
And I started to bring it up last year, but more and more I'm seeing it since we're talking about the game. Josh Allen gets passes for so much shit that other quarterbacks will not get a pass for. It is wild to me. I don't understand it. And we started talking about it last year, but he makes some of the worst fucking plays at the worst fucking times, and nobody ever wants to bring that up.
Everybody is saying how Josh Allen had this perfect game. If Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins played the way that Josh Allen played in that game, you'd be saying they're not top 10 quarterbacks. We need to draft new quarterbacks in the league. You need to do all of this. Josh Allen had it statistically. That was his third worst game this year.
He is
Everybody's saying he's amazing.
he is just a hair over 50% completion on the day. And he's got 223 or 233, 1 tud, 1 interception.
And if that was against the Chiefs defense at the start of the year, all right, we can have a discussion about how good this Chiefs defense is. But the Chiefs defense has slowly been in decline. They're let up, like, not crazy in decline, obviously, but they're not letting up like mad. They're not letting up mad numbers, but they're giving up points in games. They're not as good as they were at the start of the season.
If that would have been Dak, all you would have heard is the Cowboys won in spite of Dak.
If that fourth quarter performance was Dak Prescott, we'd be talking about how he harmed his MVP candidacy. We'd be talking about how he's a liability, how he's overpaid, how he's the person holding this team back. Just if that fourth quarter thing was Dak. In that fourth quarter, I think they had a chance to run out the clock, like leave the Chiefs with, what did I say to you, about a minute 40? If they didn't make any yardage, they had a chance to leave the Chiefs with a minute 40 and no timeouts, which you would think the Bills of all teams would want to make sure that the Chiefs had as little time as possible to get down the field, right? It only took them 14 seconds last time this happened. And they refused to run the ball. And Josh Allen did not complete a pass in that sequence at all. He also missed a wide open Gabe Davis for the second week in a row.
Just to give a highlight of how unfairly Josh Allen gets a pass. So we hear all the time how bad Kirk Cousins played against the Giants in the playoffs. That's literally a narrative, right? Cousins went 31 of 39 for 273 and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So 8 incompletions on the whole game, 273 and 2 touchdowns. He played bad because they lost. But Josh Allen goes 23 of 42, 233, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and he played great. I don't understand the Josh Allen love. It is mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, he made that one play down the sideline, which could have been called for an incomplete pass, by the way. He makes wild plays. Like, he
is amazingly and good, talented as fuck. That is not
Josh Allen. Josh Allen is still a top 10 quarterback, especially in talent. Like, everything needs to be taken in moderation when we're saying this kind of thing. We're just saying that Josh Allen isn't, like, everybody keeps on saying the Bills just need to let Josh Allen play ball and then they'll get through. The Bills just need. One, they should have lost the game. They won the game on a refereeing call, the Bills. 2, after the first half, he was awful. Like, he was really bad, especially in the fourth quarter. He missed Gabe Davis on a game-winning touchdown, who was streaming completely open down the field. He refused to throw the ball to James Cook in the flat, who'd been working all day, and just kept on trying to feed Stephon Diggs and missing throws by, like, a decent amount as well. Like, it wasn't like they're hitting Stephon Diggs' hands and it's popping out. Like, Allen was poor, like, in the fourth quarter.
Do you believe some of that forcing it to Stephon is because they're worried about Stephon's reaction if he doesn't get the ball?
Yeah, but fucking grow a pair, man. Like,
I agree with you, but I was just wondering if you thought it had anything to do with
it. It is, but then that's another weakness there. That's an intangible weakness there, where you're so frightened of your wide receiver kicking up a fuss because you need that wide receiver. You're so frightened of him that you have to force the ball to him. And look, the Chiefs didn't play well in this game either. Like, the Chiefs didn't have a great game. They pulled out a great play at the end of the game that unfortunately got called back. But they didn't play. They didn't play particularly well either. And the Bills' defense stood up, and with all those injuries, they stood up in Arrowhead and they played well. And now the Bills are the favorite against the Cowboys going into the weekend, which is insane to me.
It's wild. The whole thing is wild. There is a couple games that most people aren't probably thinking of that I want to talk about too.
Let's do it.
I really want to talk about that Jets-Texans game, only because. So all this shit happens about Zach Wilson. He just gets fucking crushed in the media last week for reportedly not wanting to be the starter again in New York with everything going on. And I get it. You got benched for two dudes, one of them who's not even on the fucking team come at the end of the day. But leave it to Zach Wilson in a fucking rainstorm to have the best game of his fucking NFL career.
It's the most Zach Wilson game.
Huh?
Yeah. It's the most Zach Wilson game of all time, is what we've just seen right there.
27 of 36, 301, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in a fucking rainstorm. In a fucking rainstorm. So,
yeah. And you don't even need that level of play from Zach Wilson for the Jets to win football game. Now, unfortunately, he showed his other side a bit too much at certain points early on in the season, and now they're out of the playoff race, even if Aaron Rodgers was going to come back, which I think was always a bit smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I think mathematically
they weren't going to make the playoffs.
They're still in it, but they have to win out and have a bunch of people lose to get in.
Yeah. Also, on that side of things, Zach Wilson was excellent, but let's not the Jets need to make sure they don't get caught up in the fact that Zach Wilson's fucking amazing and that he's their new quarterback and all of that kind of stuff. I think Zach Wilson is a decent backup quarterback in the NFL. I think he's got the kind of Ryan Fitzpatrick essence about him, like the Taylor Heineke stuff about him, where, okay, we've lost our quarterback. We've got nothing to lose. Zach, you do you, man. The problem is when Zach Wilson is almost like when he's trying, you know when Baker Mayfield showed up to the Rams without seeing the playbook. That's what I want from Zach Wilson. I don't want Zach Wilson to even attempt to read anything.
Well, and I always go back to, and I don't know, and maybe we'll get someday, maybe even next year, find out. I would like to see what Zach Wilson does with a great offensive coach. We said it about Sam Darnold. I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold fan, but I was kind of hoping I'd get to see him.
I love to see Sam Darnold I'd love to see Sam Darnold in the 49ers offense.
Yeah, there's guys I know have talent that I'd like to see if they do better, because people don't, I mean, true hardcore NFL fans get it, but the casual fan, and I don't say that in a way like people use casual as it's a negative.
Insult,
yeah, like an insult. I don't find it insulting. There's a lot of things people are casually interested in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I am casually interested in the World Cup.
Yeah. We just mean we don't, like, casual to me just means you don't let it take over your life. Like, I watch stuff about American football every day, like every single day during the season. We're not casual. Casual is a person who sits down on a Sunday and watches all the games.
My mom.
And then that's then done. Yeah.
My mom only
watches
my mom only watches if the Packers, because my father was the biggest Packer fan, plays, or the Vikings play because her son's a Vikings fan, right? Then she has like a rooting interest and she likes the games, but she doesn't watch any other games. But my thing is, people don't realize how important coaching is. And especially with the quarterback. I would love to see these guys get a chance just so we know, right? Like, I'm not saying that they would necessarily be anything different, but I think there's a great possibility we would see things from these young guys that we don't know. And we're at a place in the NFL now where they don't give quarterbacks the time to develop that they give other players. They will give a linebacker 3 years to develop and then put him in as a starter. They won't do that with a quarterback anymore. It's very strange. And the Jets just have not had the greatest offensive coaches, since Salah's been there. And I know Aaron Rodgers won 2 MVPs in this system, but again, you made a good point the last week. Maybe it's just Aaron Rodgers is the system.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is the system with this, by the way. Like, that's the reason that Aaron Rodgers likes this system, is because he doesn't have to listen to anybody else and he can just be the system, I think, is what's going on there. What I'd also like to see,
Go ahead.
What I'd also like to see Zach Wilson with is a decent offensive line. I think Zach Wilson with some time to throw is an interesting prospect to me. Well, that's more what I'm like, because I think he gets deer in headlights. I think his pre-snap work is where he fails so badly. His stuff pre-snap is not good. But if you give Zach Wilson a bit of time to analyze, read the game, make the throw, because we know he can make every throw in the book. If you give him that time, then he'll probably be okay. Look, still a backup quarterback to me, because the essence of being a quarterback is that pre-snap work.
In a crazy stat, coming this week, they're scheduled to have 14 backup quarterbacks starting.
Yeah, that's which we said. Didn't we say at the start of the year? We said at the start of the year that teams with backup quarterbacks teams with solid backup quarterbacks will have much better chances this year. Because if you look at the Chargers now, they were in that game. I don't know if we're going to speak about the Chargers. I can't remember. But the Chargers, they were in that game until Warren Stick came in. And then I think Warren Stick had two strip sack fumbles for a touchdown. And, if you have a decent backup quarterback, then you're going to be okay.
Well, two things you said that leads us right into the next game: offensive line and backup quarterbacks. And I am saying this as a fan, and I don't know where it'll go and how it'll turn out for this kid. But Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito, baby. I'm liking what I saw. He got no offensive line, and the kid still came out and balled out. He played better than Daniel Jones. So I don't know if he's your future, but he's definitely your future if you want to get rid of Daniel Jones and then see moving forward. You play good in 3-4 NFL games, and I don't care if it's your rookie year, you can lock yourself in as a backup quarterback in the NFL for the next 10 years.
Tommy DeVito is the backup quarterback and the heart and soul of the New York Giants organization for the next 15 years. Look, he's not going to be. If he's the starting quarterback for the New York Giants next year, the New York Giants have a problem, a serious, serious problem, where they've got rid of Daniel Jones. And I'm okay, get off the contract with Daniel Jones while you have Tommy DeVito. That's okay. But then you should be drafting another quarterback at some point this year. But then don't play your drafted quarterback straight away. But it also means Tyrod Taylor's probably injured.
Well, Brian Daboll with these young quarterbacks is another guy, though, that I'm like, let me see what he can do with DeVito in a whole offseason and this is why I say it. So accuracy, he's not bad. He only threw 4 incompletions with that horrible offensive line, and he managed not to turn the ball over. He only threw for 158 yards and a touchdown. But another thing that was impressive is the kid ran for 71 yards.
Yeah. There's something to be said for his mobility, and that behind that offensive line is really important. He has a bit of a different style of mobility to Daniel Jones. So Daniel Jones is a straight out running threat. Daniel Jones can, if the pocket breaks down and he manages to get off, he's outrunning safeties, he's outrunning quarterback, he's tripping over 10 yards away from scoring a 90-yard touchdown on air. But apart from that, Daniel Jones is that sort of running threat where he's like a Justin Fields, got back to it. Danny DeVito is short, fast. Tommy DeVito. Danny DeVito is not short and fast.
He's DeVito, short and fast.
He's short. Short, fast bursts, good in the pocket, gets outside the pocket, makes a 10-yard gain here, a 10-yard gain there. Look, he's exactly what you need if you have a shitty offensive line and nothing to lose, is where you play Tommy DeVito. And I think there's really something to be said about getting hometown talent. It's something that I think is really underrated in the NFL, because you have your organization behind you. You have everybody in the stands behind you. Nobody's going to get on Tommy DeVito. At least he's safe. Whenever he comes out, the stadium is going to lift up. And I think you keep him around, you keep him in your backup quarterback room. You're looking for other options if you're the Giants. But for now, they're an exciting team to watch because they've got Tommy DeVito back there.
Another thing I really liked about him was after the game, he has his interview with, I don't know who it was on the sideline. I don't remember. Right. But she asks him how he's dealing with the pressure and if it sometimes feels too much. And he was like, I've been playing this game since I was 5 years old. He goes, I am just blessed to be playing a kid's game. So I don't think it's overwhelming him either. I think he's really embracing, like, this is what it is. This is my shot. I'm going to go do it. And I love the fact that the guy gets paid so little and lives in New York that he lives at home with his parents.
Yeah, he lives in Staten Island because it's close to the facility, right? Like, gets paid so little, gets paid the league minimum, which I'm pretty sure is like 750,000.
I think he only had like 200 and some thousand guaranteed being an unrestricted free agent. And and then you're living in New York City. The cost of living in fucking New York is astronomical. I mean, a shitty apartment, a shitty one is $4,000 a month.
Yeah, I mean, it's a smart deal to live
I
with
like
your
it.
parents. It's a
Him
smart
and his
deal.
brother
I like
both
it.
live at home. I like it. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I like it.
I like it from him. Have you seen his agent as well?
I want to know if that was a real phone call on the sideline or if his agent was playing agent on the sideline. That's what I want.
Yeah, he's like a long time. I heard he's getting inducted into the Italian American Sports Personality Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was such a thing. So,
it's on Rick Eisen. I heard that as well. I was like, oh my god, wow.
Tommy Cutlet.
Yeah. So he grew up in Staten Island, played high school football, and apparently balled out in Staten Island. Then went to Syracuse, where he balled out as well. So he does have some pedigree to him as a quarterback. Let's remember though, he threw for 158 yards off 17
with a horrible offensive line too. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Brock Purdy's Mr. Irrelevant. Tom Brady was taking 199. I mean, there's a few other guys through the history of the NFL who have been undrafted free agents and have been pretty good. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. Huh?
Tony
Romo. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl.
Kurt Warner.
There is guys. Yeah. Kurt Warner is a great one. He was a 27-year-old rookie.
Yeah. There are guys out there. I'm not sure whether Tommy's won.
I don't know either, but I want to know.
I want to know. I want him to get a run, and I just want to see what happens because he's fun to watch. You want to talk?
When I messaged you, I really like Tommy DeVito. I was waiting for you to come back and go, like, you think he's a good quarterback? Or I'm like, I don't know, but I really like this story. I've never said this. I'm excited to watch the Giants play next week.
I just presumed you liked him because he was beating the Packers. That's what
that's always a good time, feel good story, but I really like the story behind him, like what's going on, and I really want this kid to succeed because I think it would be an amazing story for the NFL. An undrafted free agent comes in, gets his shot on a bad team, and this is a kid where I think you have the right coach. We were talking about offensive coaches. I think Brian Daboll's up there. Look at how much better Josh Allen played under him than he is without it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about homegrown talent as well. So guys from that city, because obviously Brandon Aubrey for the Dallas Cowboys he's from the area. He's a Cowboys fan, and he's playing lights out. I think it takes some of the business and the pressure out of it when you're playing for your hometown club, because in like European football, every team has players from the city that the team is in. Like Sunderland, for example, my team, our two best players are from Sunderland, or two of our best players are from the city, and it makes you can see the joy that they have playing for the team, and you can see that in DeVito as well. Now, do we know if DeVito was a fan of the Jets or the Giants growing up? I don't know. Italian American living on Staten Island gives me more Jets vibes than Giants vibes, but
but if you're a football player, you probably lean towards the better team in your city too, right? Like people forget the Islanders are even a New York hockey team because of the Rangers. That's kind of like the Mets, the Islanders, and the Jets are kind of like the little brothers to the Knicks, the Giants, and the Rangers. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter either way to me. I want to see how this plays out, and I just hope they definitely give him the rest of the year, and then we get a decent idea, and then we'll have an idea once they get a better offensive line, what he could do too. It does help that I don't think the Packers defense is as good as people keep touting it to be, but it's always good to watch the Packers lose. And anybody who's a fan of Coming to America, you've seen the movie?
Yeah.
Do you remember when he's working in the fake McDonald's, the McDowell's, And he's like, "Sir, did you see the NFL football game of the football Giants?" And he's like, "They played the Green Bay Packers, and they won the game by kicking this oblong ball through a big H." And I was like, "Oh, Eddie Murphy predicted the future in that movie."
Yeah, the great Giants of New York played the Packers of Green Bay. Yeah,
I'll agree.
Yeah, the Packers. The Packers are in that weird 6 and 7 group, and
everybody's 6 and 7 in the NFL right now.
If I get to choose my playoff teams, I think out of the 6 and 7 groups, the Packers are up there with the teams I would choose to play.
Oh, okay. So you're not saying that's who you think will get it. That's who you would rather play.
If I could be in a team that are going to be in the playoffs, if I could choose who I get to play.
If you don't win the division, you are going to be playing the 7 seed. Or me?
No, we'll play. We'll play the winner of the NFC South if we don't get it. If we don't win the division, we'll play the winner of the NFC South.
That's right.
If the Eagles lose against the Seahawks, which I don't think is going to happen, but if the Eagles lose one of the next 4 games and we win out, which both of those are big ifs.
Well,
I would love to play the Packers in the playoffs.
Let's talk about those Eagles Cowboys while we're on it, because after watching that game, I did come away thinking, and I said this to you, the Cowboys really need to win that division and play at home, because they are just like they're a good team, but they're just different at home.
Yeah, they're a good team on the road. Like they drove the Eagles. People are saying, "Oh, the Cowboys are 500 when they go on the road this year." They must be below 500 when they've played 4 games away from home. They've won 2, lost 2. The 2 games that they lost away from home against the 49ers and the Eagles, can we just let's just remember that very quickly. They're a good team when they're on the road, but when they're at home, they're so fast. They play with such sureness in what they're doing. They're just lightning quick across the field, and it feels like they can dominate every facet of the game when they're at home. So I agree with you. Like, I was worried that you were going to say that they're not good on the road, which they are good on the road, just not as good as when they're at home.
Right. And so you're a Cowboys fan.
Just the same with everybody.
I want to read the stats to you that I pointed out on, not really stats, but shit that happened, that I pointed out about the Eagles game. And the response I got from a Cowboys fan who ended up blocking me, which is just funny in itself, was shut the fuck up was one of them. Yep. Fuck you, and then a bunch of middle fingers. And then one was, leave me alone, you piece of shit, was the last one. All I said was,
harassment suit.
I didn't mean this as a dig at the Cowboys, but they took it that way. All I said was, the Eagles fucking shot themselves in the foot when they had a chance to be in this game by Jalen Hurts, lost fumble at the 20-yard line on the first drive. A.J. Brown, lost fumble at the 37-yard line on the 5th drive.
Forced fumble.
Well, you got to hold on to the fucking ball. I know. The point, right? Devontae Smith, lost fumble at the 12-yard line on the 8th drive. They shot themselves so early in that fucking game that, there's this self-destruct mechanism with the Eagles for some reason. I don't know what the fucking it reminds me of watching the fucking Vikings at the beginning of the year. You have a chance to win those games and you just fucking kill yourself. That's got to hurt worse than just getting your ass whooped by a team, though. You know what I mean? Just having a team own you has to be easier than to go back in the film study the next day and go, you potentially left 21 points on the ground with fumbles.
Yeah. They were, you do need to hold on to the ball. You're 100% right. They are forced fumbles where it's every tackle is a peanut, on the ball tackle coming from behind. So it's good defensive playing, good defensive coaching. So you're right, the Eagles do that. In the first game that we played, the Eagles fumbled the ball 3 times in that game and recovered the fucking rock all 3 times in that game as well. So if we recover the ball 1 time in that game, then we're because we're currently top of the division, by the way. But the Eagles have it in their hands.
All the tiebreakers go to the Eagles right now. Right now,
everything goes to the Eagles if we have the same record at the end of the year. But we're top of the division right now. We're the clubhouse leaders. If one of those fumbles goes our way, then we probably win the game against the Eagles. But I've been saying to you that the Eagles have a turnover differential problem. They're now -4 in turnover differential on the season. And you're going to struggle to win games if you're losing the turnover battle. And they're -4 across the entire season in turnover differential. So the Eagles, I do think they have problems. They've also come out of a difficult stretch of football. They're also playing on the road against a team who was really high and ready to go. Like, I don't think the past 2 weeks are, we burn the Eagles, they're the worst team ever. I still think neutral field, whether that neutral field is turf or grass, I think is the deciding factor between the Cowboys and the Eagles. I think the 49ers are the best team in the league as long as they stay healthy. But I think the Cowboys dominated the Eagles in every facet of the game. They dominated the Eagles. They also, special teams, obviously, it helps if your kicker's rinsing it from 60 yards out. That's always going to help. Offensively, Dak didn't have his best game this year, but looked good. And defensively, those turnovers, our forced fumbles, really important as well. So I think the Cowboys played a great game. I think the Eagles aren't as bad as everybody is now saying they are. The NFL is a massive overcorrection league. And I think when all's said and done, I think the Eagles are the number 2 seed and the Cowboys are the number 5 because the Eagles win out and it doesn't really matter what we do from that point.
Yeah, that poor Tommy DeVito has to play the Eagles 2 times in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's the Seahawks, Giants, Cardinals, Giants for the Eagles, and ours is the Bills. Who have we got? Bills, Dolphins,
Lions,
Commanders, and the Lions. So not the easiest schedule to finish out with. But look, the Cowboys have done what everybody's been asking them to do, and they've beaten a really good team, and they didn't just beat them by a little bit, they beat them comprehensively. And for some reason in the NFL this year, especially with the Cowboys wins, the Cowboys wins compared to the Eagles wins and stuff. For some reason, like it feels to me in the analysis of this game from some people that if the Cowboys won by 1 point on a walk-off field goal, that would be better than dominating them all the way through. Just in some of the analysis, I'm so confused by that, and I don't understand. I want to see a gritty win from the Cowboys. They walked all over the Eagles when the Eagles weren't ready, and I'm like,
okay,
the Cowboys can't win.
Petty. That's just being petty at that point.
Yeah. That's just like the Cowboys have done what you've asked them to do. They can't do any more than what you've asked of them. Since the bye, the Cowboys can't do any more.
Well, people are probably wondering why I'm going to even want to talk about this game, but it's just one player that makes me want to talk about it. The Jags losing to the Browns. Holy shit, the revive of Joey Footsteps Flacco.
Yeah. Are the Jets, right? So with Zach Wilson playing well, right? Great. But are the Jets a bit upset that they had Joey Flacco sitting on the couch at home?
Fucking so stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid that they didn't go out for Flacco or go try to grab another quarterback. I don't know what they were thinking. And I mean, we obviously found out why they didn't go after Josh Dobbs, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just literally Flacco's a Super Bowl champion. And he threw for 311 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had an interception, but on the other side, we all praise Trevor Lawrence, and he only threw for 257, 3 touchdowns, but he had 3 picks.
Yeah, this game was a turnover fest. Neither team wanted to win this game the way that it looked. The Jags recently have been doing everything to dent their we're an AFC contender hopes in what looks like a weak AFC this year. When you look at the rosters, you think with the Chiefs playing the way that they are, the Jags, the Dolphins, we're going to talk about them in a little bit, but the Dolphins are just a weird team as well. The Jags have their chance now to get to an AFC Championship game and play the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl. And they've been doing everything that they can to show that they're not Super Bowl contenders. However, the Jags had to go through 3 left tackles during that game as well from injuries against Myles Garrett.
Watching Ezra Cleveland get moved to tackle was something I was like, I always wondered how that would have worked in Minnesota because he was originally a tackle in college, converted. He played all right, but it did show again like he's not really an NFL tackle.
I think it's how many snaps did he actually get before he went out there? Because I think it's unfair to judge. Also, when the assignment is Myles Garrett, just the Browns defense in general.
Isn't that a good measuring stick though to see where you're at? Throw him up against a Myles Garrett or one of those guys, and if you hang, even if he beats you sometimes, if you hang, then you got some potential. If he just got worked.
Yeah, he got worked, but he didn't have that many snaps there before he went down to like adjust to the game. And
well, everybody was wondering why the Vikings would give him up for a 6th round pick, and I'm like, because they're not going to re-sign him. Like, and he's a free agent. You weren't
going to use him. You weren't going to use him,
even though we could have used him with all our offensive line going down this weekend. But
you can't justify yourself. You can't be too upset with yourself for injuries. That's.
I'm just impressed.
You should prepare better. Yes.
And the Browns are 8-5, and the Jags are 8-5, which means if it comes down to a tiebreaker, the Browns now own that tiebreaker for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. You would expect the Jags to win there. Well, not if Houston. Well, depending on how well we didn't really talk about CJ Stroud only throwing for 91 yards and going off the field injured, but the Texans with Nico Collins injured. I don't know how long he's injured for. He's listed as questionable this week. Tank Dell is out. CJ Stroud went off the field injured. I think he's now listed as questionable for the coming week. We don't know how the Texans are going to be coming off that beating such a young team. So you would hope that the Jags are still in it for the title in the AFC South. But it is looking like they may need to win this division to get there, right? Like the South is weak. Like the AFC South, it looks like they might need to win the division to get there because of tiebreakers and everything like that.
Joe Flacco, one of the most impressive stats he had was he threw completions to 8 different receivers in that game.
That's impressive. Yeah. Flacco. So I don't think the Jets should be too disappointed without Flacco because the Browns have an excellent offensive line. And the Jets do not. A team that does have a good offensive line when they're healthy, Vikings, who could have done with Flacco, but we'll see how Nick Mullins does.
I ain't even going to talk much about the Vikings. You don't get much airtime when you win the fucking game with a soccer score.
Yeah, it's a good football game, 3-0. Not a good football game.
Yeah, like
3-0. Oh, not that it wasn't a good game, filled with excitement and
it was fucking awful
and everything.
But it was one of the worst games I've ever watched. It was like watching fucking paint dry, but stressful.
Yeah. Well, the Vikings defense did me a solid in fantasy this week, so that's good for me.
Well, the Vikings defense did everybody a solid who's a Vikings fan this week.
Yeah, they played great. But yeah, Flacco came out balling. It's interesting the amount of rest that he's got and has then come back, because you think of Geno Smith as well last year, where it's like, oh, if we give these guys rest, we give them a chance to develop, we give them like Joe Flacco comes back in and he's excellent because he's rested his arm and his arm's not falling off anymore. Matthew Stafford, because they were so shit at the end of last year, the Rams, has had a chance for his arm to come back again, because they just said, yeah, Matthew Stafford, you're injured, sit out as much of the season as we can. So with these guys, Flacco, I think back to Foles, I think to Matthew Stafford, these guys who we thought their arms were dead, Flacco's maybe proved that a bit of rest, and they can come back and they dissect the game so quickly. Joe Flacco is like the opposite of Zach Wilson. They dissect the game so quickly that they don't need that much arm talent to get them through.
All right. Well, let's talk about that Dolphins Titans. Okay, I am so mad at Mike. I am so mad at Vrabel. I am so mad at Vrabel. If he doesn't go for that 2-point conversion and he kicks that extra point, I'm in the playoffs of fantasy.
Oh man,
I needed Duffy to lose, and that fucker won by 0.3 point. I won my game, which I needed to do. I won that motherfucker like early, right? And then I was like, all right. So I'm watching Gabe Davis not do shit. I'm like, great. Romeo Dobbs ain't doing shit. And all I needed was 0.3. So if they kick that extra point, Coney Island beats Duffy, and he's out, and I'm in the playoffs. That's how close that was.
Yeah, I had a really fun fantasy week this week because I was actually playing against an Eagles fan, and a lot of my team are also Cowboys, and he had DeAndre Swift. So like, it was a fun game where it felt very close at big moments where it was like, oh shit, I don't know whether I'm going to make this here. I don't know when I'm going to do that. So very fun. But yeah, why did they go for the 2-point? See, this is the problem.
To win the game.
This is
to win the game.
So
they go for the 2-point, take it. So now if they score again, they'll kick the extra point to win instead of tie, right? Because they're on the road and Vrabel's like, fuck it. That was an awesome comeback victory. It was amazing. And I think they found their guy in Will Levis.
Yeah, I mean, Will Levis made a toss look very difficult. Will Levis is an unpolished diamond, right? Like, Will Levis is
he's young and still raw, but he's got so much talent.
He looks a bit like Josh Allen when Josh Allen first came into the league, right? Like,
and he's fiery,
arm talent, athlete, sometimes plays like a bit of a headless chicken, can't do the simple plays of the toss of the ball. I question his pre-snap work, but obviously that just comes to you later in your career anyway.
When to come back against a team like that with only 80 yards rushing from your whole team, too, I thought was impressive. I know that people are like, well, Tyreek didn't play the whole game, like he was in and out, which was weird. But that's the NFL, and he beat a team that was 9-3 going into that game. I was just impressed with Will Levis.
Yeah, I was impressed with Will Levis. 327 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But you know, when you've got Derrick Henry, close to the goal line, you give that guy the ball. Derrick Henry got 2 touchdowns on the day. Yeah, with the Dolphins, they're a strange team, right? Because everybody's comparing them to the Cowboys, which is fair in terms of they've not beaten anybody good. But I think the Dolphins at points let teams in that have no business dicing with the Dolphins. Anyway, like the difference between them is the Cowboys actually put teams to the sword, and the Dolphins scored 70 points on the Broncos. Every now and again, the Dolphins just score a crazy amount of points, and the defense doesn't really have to do much. In this game, they couldn't quite get going against Vrabel. Tyreek Hill going in and out of the lineup, obviously not helpful. And Tua just doesn't look as dynamic as he did at the start of the season. I'm surprised they didn't run more through Achane, because Raheem Mostert ran for 96 yards off 21 carries of 4.6 an average. Achane ran for 47 yards or 7 carries at 6.7 an average. Like, once you get ahead, guys, you're allowed to just run the ball. Like, Mike McDaniel, you don't have to do crazy, like, it doesn't have to be crazy out there plays every play. You've got excellent running backs. You've got an excellent running offense. Run the ball when you're ahead and just win games, you know? Like what you've been saying that the Eagles have been doing all year, where it's just like the Eagles just win games that they need to win. It's like sometimes Miami just win the game. You don't get awards for style points.
Yeah, and Vrabel went in there with a great game plan. Like, they seem to be figuring out more and more of that Dolphins offense, but when they're clicking, can you stop them? I don't know. Like, even if you know what's coming.
Yeah. It also helps that DeAndre Hopkins went for 127 yards as well. Like, D-Hop had plays there where you're like, oh shit, yeah, D Hop's one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Well, let's talk about the Detroit Lions and Chicago Bears, because I just watched Jared Goff turn back into Jared Goof, but we all knew that was coming. I hate to say it like this because I don't know how else to put it, but they're the worst 9-4 team in the NFL right now.
Oh yeah, like that's who are the other 9-4 teams in the NFL? The Chiefs,
and the Dolphins. Yeah, there's a couple, but yeah.
Yeah, the Lions are nowhere near a 9-4 team. The Bears are 5-8, weirdly dangerous.
Well, this is a Brock Purdy stat, but I wanted to pull it up just because it highlights what we've said about Justin Fields. Look at that. Percentage of passes attempt thrown at or behind the line of scrimmage with the NFL rankings. Dude, besides Russell Wilson, Justin Fields throws the most balls at or behind the line of scrimmage with almost 32% of his throws coming at the line of scrimmage or behind it. So, like, I get people are like, hey, let's like give Justin Fields a chance. I hope the Bears stick with him and give him a chance. I fucking pray, because he went 19-33, 223 with a touchdown, and that's what we're supposed to praise him for.
Yeah, so Justin Fields had a good game. Like, Justin Fields played well. But if this is the best of Justin Fields, you've got a mediocre quarterback there who, in fairness, he's another quarterback that I personally would like to see in a different system where they design the system around him. I'd be interested to see it if a team has the patience to do that.
You don't think the Bears system is built around him?
I would personally like to see more design runs, more like than him scrambling out. Like, let's just admit that he's not a throwing quarterback and let's just run the guy, you know?
He did run 12 times for 58 yards. He was their leading rusher, which is wild in the fact that they won that game with leading rusher of 58 yards. But that says more to me about the Lions defense and how bad the Lions defense is.
Yeah, he also, like, just to put this into perspective, 19 completions on 33 when you throw most of them behind the line is also a terrible completion rate.
If you get the Bears to third down and you don't let Fields run, you pretty much are getting the ball back.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I would like to see, I would love to see Justin Fields with Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. Not if I was a fan of the Atlanta Falcons, I wouldn't be that keen on seeing it. And to be honest, I'm not like, oh yeah, he's going to change life in Atlanta if he goes there. I would personally think it would be interesting to watch those weapons all in one system and just see what happens. But if this is the game if this is Justin Fields' breakout game, these two games against the Lions, you need a new quarterback in Chicago. The Lions, you can't lose twice against the Bears. Again, with the whole...
Well, they beat the Bears the last time, but they almost lost to them.
Yeah, sorry. It felt like a loss sat here.
Yeah, it would have felt better if that record would have came down to 8-5 instead of 9-4.
Yeah. Again,
crazy to think though, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if the Vikings win out, they're the NFC North champions.
Yeah, and I think that's the Vikings' way to the playoffs, right? Like, are you another?
Well, they're the 6th seed right now, and the Packers are the 7th.
Right.
But if they win out, they end up, no matter, even if the Lions win the other games, they both end up with a tied record, and the Vikings will have beat the Lions twice for the tiebreaker.
Yeah. Right. Okay, that makes sense. Can I make a point where I feel sorry for the Lions defense? Because again, on 4th down, 1 for 5 on 4th down. Dan Campbell, you don't need to be this aggressive. You don't need to do it. Give your defense the best chance. Let the punter kick it within the 10. and give your defense a chance to be decent. You know, and if you don't trust your defense, maybe you should grow some balls and start looking for a different defensive coordinator. Because he's all like, these guys are my family. These guys are my family. I feel so bad sacking guys. Well, I think it might be coming to the detriment of the defensive side of the ball right now, if that's what you're doing.
Also, can we stop the foolish talk about Dan Campbell for Coach of the Year now?
That must have been done a couple of weeks ago. Like, surely we've not heard that for a few weeks.
I've been fucking poo-pooing the idea since it came up, though. But you know me, I just get called a Dan Campbell hater, which, yes, he drives me absolutely insane. But, like, I think the Lions were overly propped up, and we talked about this going into this year.
Yeah.
And I picked them to go 9-7, which isn't going to happen. They're not going to be too much above that when the season comes to an end.
Yeah, I think with Dan Campbell, I think Dan Campbell has now done his job with the Lions. If I was the Lions front office, I'd be like, Dan Campbell has sorted out the culture a little bit. We're now winning team. We play hard. We fight. Let's get a real coach in here now to like take us to the next. I
like
level.
the idea, but your fan base would lose their mind.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%, which is a problem in itself. But imagine the Lions if they get a guy like Dan Quinn to come in now, where you go, okay, we fix the defensive side of the ball. Jared Goff still, I know he's had a bit of a downturn, but I still think Jared Goff is a very highly ranked quarterback, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Gibbs, whoever else they've got, wide receiver, Jameson Williams, and those guys. You have a decent offensive side of the ball. Get Dan Quinn come in and fix your defense, and now you have an extra solid team there. They're not going to do it.
Every time I see Jameson Williams drop a fucking pass, I'm like, yeah, that trade don't look too bad now. When we traded out there for them to move up and get him, I'm like, oh, that trade don't look too bad now. Like,
yeah, with the personality trait issues outside of the football pitch as well.
So, yeah. So, what's your thought on the Lions? Like, are they dead? I do know if Dan Campbell wins one playoff game there, they might actually build a statue of the fucking guy. So,
yeah. So what are they going to be? The third seed, right? They're probably going to be the third seed. Looking at it,
whoever wins the NFC North will probably be the third seed.
Yeah. So
because honestly, as odd as it is, the Packers still have a mathematical shot at winning that too.
Yeah, whoever wins that will be the third seed, but it looks like it's going to be the Lions right now. So then the Lions will play the sixth seed. So who's that realistically going to be? Because they don't want to see the Packers there again. Like I don't think they want to see the Packers.
It could be the Vikings. It could be the Packers. Yeah. It could be any of those teams that are bundled up at 6 and 7 right now too.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys' best route at the moment to getting a home playoff game is the 5th seed, go out and be the Bucks, and then get to play against whoever beats the Lions. Yeah, that's not how. I'm pretty sure that's not how the seeding works. That just means we have to go to.
No, because whoever the first
Eagles,
seed, the 49ers.
Yeah, the Eagles. Yeah, because the first seed
technically could have a at-home AFC or NFC Championship game if the games fell right.
Yeah, if the games fall. But anyway, I could see the Lions getting into the playoffs and losing the game there, because when they play a game as favorites, they take too much risk for the talent deficiency, for the talent that they have on their team compared to the talent they have on the opposing team. They take way too many risks. Their defense is not good enough to cope when you don't make those risky plays. When the offense can't get it done, the defense isn't good enough. I think they lose their first playoff game.
All right. Well, let's talk about tomorrow's game. We got the Herbertless Chargers traveling to the Las Vegas I can't score any points Raiders.
Yeah. What a game.
The Raiders are favored by 2.5 points in this game.
Wow, with Warren Stick at quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers. He looked bad, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And Staley's a defensive coach, and their defense hasn't been all that great. Their offense coaching hasn't been great because you have a really good quarterback that you guys can't get anything out of for some reason. I never thought I would say this coming into it, but just because the Raiders have a good defense, Max Crosby's a fucking monster. Aiden O'Connell, though, I don't think is the answer either after watching him play against Minnesota, but he's still young. I'm still going to take the Raiders minus the 2.5 because I'm going to ride Max Crosby and Josh Jacobs to a win.
Yeah, I think that the Raiders are going to score points on the defensive side of the ball. I think Warren Stick is good for turnovers, and if Max Crosby makes it to him, he's good for a strip sack fumble for a touchdown, is what we've learned over the weekend. So I think the Raiders are going to get points on the defensive side of the ball, and I think the Raiders win this one pretty handily. I'll be disappointed if the Raiders don't win by 7.
So we're both taking Las Vegas Raiders, which who would have thought, minus 2.5 on a game.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's minus 2.5. I'm surprised that it's that low. After watching Warren Stick play. But I mean, I know the Raiders don't score points, but like
they just came off a game where they got blanked. So
yeah. Blanked against a good defense. The Chargers do not have a good defense.
Yeah,
I mean, the Chargers also blanked the Patriots. But
Ivan Pace, undrafted free agent, who I was really excited about when the Vikings got him, and balling out and clinching that fucking victory with an interception. That kid can fly at the linebacker position, and that was a huge problem in that defense last year as the middle was wide open. I think the people who were mad that they got rid of Kendrick see why now because we talked about it. His coverage is lacking. And for me, I said this before the season, I think the Vikings' best acquisition in the offseason was Brian Flores.
Yeah, definitely. And they're excellent on the offensive side of the ball. And now it's Nick Mullins' turn. A quarterback, it seems. Let's see what he can do.
He's got a career completion percentage of 65. It ain't the worst I've seen.
I feel like he's not going to be an interception problem. Like he's not going to be a turnover problem like Dobbs is. So yeah, have we heard anything from Justin Jefferson?
He's playing. He came out today and said he's playing.
Cool.
Leave it to Josh Dobbs though. You've really seen how bad it was when you contrasted the two guys because Mullins made some plays in the pocket with dudes up in his face that Josh Dobbs would have exited that pocket already and been gone. So those were huge. And he came in and drove them right down the field right away. So that was huge too to see. There is too much talent on that offense to not be able to pick up first downs.
Yeah, especially at the wide receiver position, right? You have too many guys that are good in close quarters as well, who create separation quickly to not just be making open throws.
And I don't think he'll get JJ hurt like Dobbs did by throwing the ball and putting him in an awful position.
I was thinking that could be the worst thing that Dobbs has done since he came to the Vikings. Like, Dobbs should be commended for the way that he's come into the Vikings, kept them alive at points, and then turned into a fucking pumpkin for the past 2 weeks.
We don't win that first game that he plays without him because our backup quarterback got a concussion in the first half.
Yeah.
But I you know me, I was so against people getting overly hyped about him, and I was like, they need to fucking stop. Like, and it just is exactly what I thought it was going to be. He turned back into a fucking pumpkin, and
yeah,
I don't think you'll ever see Josh Dobbs start another NFL game unless it's due to multiple injuries again.
I don't know about multiple, maybe just one. Like, I feel like if he was at the Chargers now, he'd be playing over Warren.
The way it sounds is he's not even going to be our backup going into this week.
Wow.
It sounds like
Jaren
Hall is going to be number 2.
You need to assess Jaren Hall.
I'm not in any rush to get him on the field. He's a rookie. I like let him learn. Let him fucking learn. But and I think this just proves they're going to figure out a way to get Kirk Cousins back next year. And
100%. I don't know why they wouldn't. I think maybe Kirk's injury might have extended his career time by another year or two because
and I think it might have cheapened his cost too.
Yeah. As a Cowboys fan with Dak Prescott's MVP candidacy, don't get me wrong, I'm very happy about it. But I know we're going to have to pay him $55 million a year soon.
Yeah, I read something. I sent it to you that Dak was asking that it looks like Dak wants to be the highest paid player in the NFL. I can't be mad at him, but
go win the MVP.
It's easy for me to say sitting from my couch. I'm always a believer. Your first contract, like what's your second, but your first one you get to negotiate. Go get paid. Get every dime you can fucking get. But then, if you're in a position to take a little less to win a Super Bowl, you might want to do it. But it's easy for me to say because it's not my money.
Yeah. I was saying with the Cowboys, you get it on the back end as the Cowboys quarterback as well. Like Tony Romo is now the highest paid. Like Tony Romo's career is now sorted for. Because I do get the go for the money while you're in the league, because obviously that's your lifetime earnings that you're getting while you're in the league. But if you're a Dallas Cowboys quarterback and you're as well-spoken and as presentable as Dak Prescott, you've got a career after this where they're going to pay you millions a year for that as well. So, yes, I would like it if he did, but if he goes out and wins the MVP, all fucking fair play to him. If he gets us to an NFC championship game, if he gets us to a Super Bowl, obviously, is the goal. But if he gets us there, fucking all right. I've got a body of work from you where I can see. And can we start saying now maybe Dak's injury did carry over into those years, and the injury did carry over, and now he's kind of fixed himself a little bit.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty good quarterback. I think there's a lot of talent around him, and I also think it'd be the most gangster move ever if you guys win the Super Bowl and then say thanks but no thanks, Dak, and you walk away.
Cheers, Dak.
Yeah, just deuces and walk away.
It would be the least Jerry Jones thing I'd ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, because if he gets Jerry a Super Bowl, Jerry will overpay that dude as long as he's alive.
You want $70 million a year, Dak? Yeah, sick. Let's do it.
All right. Well, we made it through another episode. We'll have to figure out when we're coming to you for the next one because we have Saturday games coming up.
We'll have to do it on Saturday.
Yeah,
Pre-game on Saturday. It'll have to be, right?
Yeah, like before the Vikings kick off.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that works because the Vikings kick off the weekend with their Saturday game. So,
what time is that for you?
It's either at noon or 1. I don't remember. Yeah. I got this pulled up though. It's a noon start on Saturday for me.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So yeah, it'll be like our Sunday ones when we did them before the games. It'll just be on Saturday.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see. I'll throw this out there, so we'll see if the line moves. Right now, Bengals favored by 3, Colts favored by 1.5, Lions favored by 4. We'll see if that changes before.
Buffalo favored by fucking 2.
Is that what they're at?
Yeah.
Who are they playing? Oh, the Cowboys.
Cowboys.
That's right. That is. Is it because it's in Buffalo? Is it going to be like fucking cold and snowy? Maybe.
No, it's because Vegas licked Josh Allen's asshole.
Yeah, but Vegas doesn't just like put shit out there to lose money. So it makes me wonder, like, what is in there? Because we're in a really odd time of year in Wisconsin. So we don't usually get snow until around Christmas, the last like 5-6 years, but it's usually really cold.
Yeah.
It went from the 50s to 17 and like tomorrow's 44. Like it is very up and down with the weather this year. Very weird. A very warm winter for my area.
Yeah. It's the new chat about the Cowboys is, okay, well, they've proved that they can beat a good team, but they can't do it on the road. They can't beat anybody on the road. It's like, well, Buffalo are the 11th seed. Let's calm down here.
are they taking into account that Buffalo needs to win this game to stay in the hunt or something? I don't know.
Yeah. That Dallas, Chris Broussard was chatting some shit about Dallas being fed and like they're coming out after this big emotional game, but the Cowboys need to win out as well. The Cowboys also need to win every single game, like as well, to have a chance at the 2 or the 1 seed even.
I kind of want to just drive over to the casino and bet this game right now.
I would before the money changes because the Cowboys fans will come.
If it wasn't just plus 105, I would take the money line, but for $5, give me the points. For $5.
I would. I would before the Cowboys fans change the money line on Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah, it's wild that some of this is. I don't always understand the point spreads, and 8 dogs won last week.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week in the NFL. The Rams nearly beat the Ravens as well. Should have probably spoke about that, but then we'll talk about it on Sunday. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. We'll get up out of here. You guys have a good night, and make sure you enjoy those games tomorrow. Drop in the comments anything you might want us to talk about on Saturday, and we'll make sure we get to it if you drop them in the comments. All right. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.